Okay, so with this painting, I hated it for a good chunk of the time that I was doing this. There's always an ugly stage, usually towards the middle as you're starting to finish up and add details. For a while, it looks ugly. For some reason, this one I felt like started out ugly, and then at the very end turned out cute. And so I'm just drawing a little painting, a little coffee shop scene here, a little cottage coffee shop. Though I think to be cottage, it would technically be like stone, I guess. I'm not sure what makes a cottage a cottage. I probably should have looked that up before I decided the cottage coffee shop theme. Uh, all this is, all this painting is from imagination. I'm not using any reference photos here, and it kind of shows. It's obviously not going to be a photorealistic painting, but that's not what I was going for. I was kind of going for like a folksy kind of feel, but not folksy. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't, but that's okay. Um, so here I decided to go with red. Kind of wanted some like red, weathered looking siding. I don't think it ended up looking weathered, but it is what it is. Green here. I think I used like a mixture of black, green, and blue in here to make the windowsills, but to be completely honest, I don't remember because it's been so long since I've actually done this painting. This particular sketchbook is actually my bullet journal. I always use the back of my bullet journal as a sketchbook, and I initially started out with the idea of I'm just going to use it for gouache paintings, but then I felt like I felt like the stipulation of just using gouache just prevented me from picking up that sketchbook to use it. So I decided that I was going to drop the rule of you can only use gouache in that sketchbook. And sometimes I'm pretty guilty of designating. Wow, that's a hard word sometimes. You know, like I'll have certain sketchbooks that like, oh, it's only pen and ink, and oh, it's only, you know, watercolor. And that's a bad habit. I don't know. It just seems like a bad habit. I decided to go with like a yellow door or blue door and like a yellow awning. I don't feel like the awning looks too terribly awning like. And then here I'm just putting a little really watered down blue, just so the page isn't like stark white right there. and I decided there needed to be like a big rock there. People could sit there and drink their coffee. The only reason I put a big rock there is because I like painting rocks. I think that's why I like mountains so much, because mountains are just giant, angly rocks, and they're fun to paint. And I decided it needed to have a cobblestone path, but like overgrown with, you know, greenery and grass. That wasn't a last minute decision. That was in the sketch. Actually planned this one out. Sometimes I just start painting with no plan. I mean, because with like watercolor and acrylic paint wash, like if that's my go-to to do landscapes. If I'm doing um, a really detailed piece, I'm working on a colored pencil piece right now of a M&M wrapper. Not M&M the wrapper, but a wrapper of peanut M&Ms. Anyways, and that piece is pretty detailed, but it seems like I always go for my colored pencils when I do like detailed pieces. Sometimes I'll use ink, but usually I don't have that level of detail with ink either. So I need some like vines and bushes around this little coffee shop. Did switch to a flat brush here just so I could cover more area a little bit quicker and get a little bit different of a shape. I do have a habit of using one brush for an entire painting, which sometimes makes my life a little bit harder. I don't know, maybe I just like the pain of making my life harder. I don't think I used any of the pre-mixed greens in this gouache set. The pre-mixed greens are pretty bright, so if I did use the pre-mixed green, I'd probably put some brown in there. Um, I always add brown to my either the pre-mixed green or yellow and blue mixture that I used to make green. And at this point in the painting, I was not happy with it. It did not look that great to me. did switch back to that round brush. Um, just a Liquitex number 6 brush. Honestly, I'm not too picky when it comes to brushes. Um, Hobby Lobby has a brand that I enjoy, that I like using, called Master's Touch. It's a pretty decent brand. And there's one thing you can't get by with are inexpensive brushes. I mean, I wouldn't go so cheap that the bristles are falling out because that's frustrating, but you don't have to spend a ton on brushes. And I will note, this paper is not designed for watercolor. This is not like a watercolor or gouache paper. This is just like cheap journal paper, but it works well. This journal is like Amazon's version of the Electrum 1917. Um, on there, I decided to use some. I forgot about that. I decided to use some Posca pens to kind of give the windowsills a like a more weathered look. Got a little bit of highlight there. Um, and I thought I had made a mistake doing that, but it ended up turning out okay. Went in with some red, with a red Posca pen, did like the siding, just to kind of add some texture. And then I did the same with the vines slash greenery around the coffee shop. And I had it in lighter green, which I used very, very sparingly. Here's where it starts to come together. You can't really tell right here, but I've got a micron pen, and I'm starting to add um, little details. And let me tell you, up until I started adding the micron stuff, the micron liner, I'll get this right. Up until I started going in with micron and adding um, the lines, the ink lines, I didn't like this paint. It was very, to me, it was very rough looking and very sloppy looking. But then doing the inking on it, it just made it look way better. And maybe that's because I have a soft spot for that kind of style. Like people that can do, and I have not mastered the style by any means, but I love the look of a wash painting or watercolor and then going back in with ink over it. It just makes a really cool look to me. I don't know. like that style. Um, if you're still with me, drop drop a low in the comments. I'm just adding some detail to the door right here. It's really hard to film me drawing and have you guys actually see what's going on. And I need to work on my camera angle because the overhead angle is fine, but my hand is often blocking the screen. Didn't really notice while I was recording. Just adding some sketchy looking lines to that rock that's in front of that tree. And I've sped this part up a fair amount. I think this whole painting, class drawing, whatever you want to call it, took like, I'm gonna say an hour, maybe, somewhere around there. Ish. Yeah, here's where I wish my lettering was better. My sister-in-law does like really cool lettering. Um, I, I've never mastered that. I've always wanted pretty handwriting. I've never actually had pretty handwriting despite several attempts. Like I practiced a lot, but I just never got there. Here I'm just adding details to the roof line. At, at this point, I haven't decided whether I liked it or not, but it was starting to grow on me at least. So I think once I put the details in for the windows and the siding and the door, it was like, yeah, I can live with this painting. I'm just adding details to the tree. Cool. It doesn't really pick up well on camera, but there is a yeah. So you can kind of tell more, I think, in person than you can on the camera. You can see it some. Um, I'm just making little squiggly lines for the leaves and stuff. I didn't go too overboard on this. So yeah, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.